Hello, friends, and welcome to this presentation on the John Henry Newman Center of Studies. I'd like to introduce you to the author of the book we're going to be studying this month. This is George MacDonald, born in Scotland in 1824 and passed away in England in 1905. J.K. Chesterton would say that George MacDonald was the St. Francis of Aberdeen because indeed he had a great love of creation, just like St. Francis, and he described him as a spiritual genius. His fairy tales and allegorical fantasies were epoch-making in the lives of multitudes. C.S. Lewis also said that while reading a copy of MacDonald's Phantastes in 1858, I knew I had crossed a great frontier. I know hardly any other writer who seems closer or more continually close to the spirit of Christ himself. George MacDonald was born and raised up in a Calvinist church, the Congregationalist Church. And his first biographer, his son, writes that when George MacDonald was little more than 17, he was in some form or other asking himself the general question, what need for the gospel if the elect and no others are predestined to be saved? 40 years later, George MacDonald himself would write, I well remember feeling as a child that I did not care for God to love me if he did not love everybody. The kind of love I needed was a kind of love that all men needed, the love that belonged to their nature as the children of the Father, a love he could not give me, except he gave it to all men. Later on, George MacDonald decided to travel to London to Highbury College to study theology and become a minister for the Congregationalist Church. There he wrote a letter to his father. I love my Bible more. I am always finding out something new in it. If the gospel of Jesus be not true, I can only pray my Maker to annihilate me, for nothing else is worth living for. And if that be true, everything in the universe is glorious except sin. He goes on with this letter. I find that the happiness springing from all things not in themselves sinful is much increased by religion. God is the God of the beautiful, religion the love of the beautiful, and heaven the home of the beautiful. Actually, our author describes beauty in creation in a fantastic way in all his writings. He fell in love with Louisa Powell in 1848 and they decided to marry, but before they married, he wrote this letter to her which tells us a lot about his way of understanding love. He writes, Is love a beautiful thing, dearest? You and I love, but who created love? Let us ask him to purify our love, to make it stronger and more real and more self-denying. I want to love you forever, so that though there is not marrying or giving in marriage in heaven, we may see each other there as the best beloved. O Louisa, is it not true that our life here is a growing unto life, and our death a being born, our true birth? If there is anything beautiful in this our dreamy life, shall it not shine forth in the glory in the bright waking consciousness of heaven? He goes on, and in our life together, my dear, dear Louisa, if it please God that we should pass any part of our life together here, shall it not still shine when the cloud is over my head? I may see the light shining from your face, and when darkness is around you, you may see the light on mine, and thus we shall take courage. You can see a picture of Bordighera where in Italy they lived together. They had to travel there for health reasons as George MacDonald had always a very poor health with his lungs. So he needed a warmer weather and they lived for a long time in Bordighera together. Actually, they're both buried together in Bordighera, Italy, George MacDonald and his wife. They did get married in 1851 and celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary in 1901. Sadly, Louisa died a few months later in 1902. but George MacDonald described her as the best in his life. George MacDonald in 1953 renounces the Congregationalist Church because he takes very different views on predestination. And he writes to his father, "Of course, still my heart is like Christ's great heart. I cannot fully know what he meant. The great thing for understanding what he said is to have a living sense of the reality that a young man of poor birth appeared unexpectedly in the country of Judea and uttered most unwelcome truths, setting at naught all the respectabilities of the time, and calling bad bad and good good in the face of all the religious perversions. Then the first thing is to know Jesus as a man, and any theory about him that makes less of him as a man, with the foolish notion of exalting his divinity, I refuse at once. The life, thoughts, deeds, aims, beliefs of Jesus have to be fresh expounded every age, for all the depth of eternity lies in them, and they have to be seen into more profoundly every new era of the world's spiritual history. You must not be surprised if you hear that I am not what is called getting on. Time will show what use the Father will make of me. I desire to be his entirely. So sure am I that therein lies all things. If less than this were my hope, I should die." So after he renounces his job as a pastor, of course, he loses his job and has to travel to Manchester to find another job. There he tries to found his own church, working with the poor. And later on, he finds a better job teaching English literature in Bedford. Then he teaches in London. In 1866, he joins the Anglican Church. By 1867, he has 11 children with his wife Louisa. Sadly, they have to bury 4 of their daughters, but they're very good parents. In the 1870s, he becomes quite famous and is invited to America to give a few conferences. Then he goes back to Bordighera, Italy, and in 1898 he has heart failure and passes away in 1905. I recommend you to watch the movie on YouTube. You've got the link below. And I hope you enjoy the great work of this author so close to Christ. God bless you and goodbye.